This is gonna get a little messy.
You can't do this! It's gonna hurt, Captain.
Not as much as this.
Thank you, Jonathan, again for speaking with me and yeah, diving into your film. I wanted to start with a quote from Spielberg. He famously once said, "I'll never film on open ocean again, or open water again, excuse me, after filming Jaws." But you did exactly that in Chum. What were some of the challenges, but also some of the rewards of
We
doing
did
what
exactly that.
Spielberg tried to persuade filmmakers not to do?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. Filming in open water certainly has a lot of challenges, and I mean, every time I see the wide-brimmed hat in my closet, I get triggered about the 100-degree weather and the sun beating down in the open seas. But it really did give you that sense of isolation. Once we got out past, the breakwaters and things, we were really out in the ocean, and we did a lot of it sort of anchored and things so that we could film all right, and we had to work with a skeleton crew. And what's interesting about that is you gain a real familiarity and an intimacy with that crew. I mean, people are helping each other out, doing each other's jobs when necessary. I mean, there was a famous shot where the sound guy was holding a reflector, and the producer, Eamon, who's I think coming on the call, was like holding a piece of board to cut out part of the sun on one side. And so everybody had to be on all the time to make it work, or it wouldn't have worked. And they were. And in that way, it was a really very special experience being out in the open water. And then, as you see in the film, I mean, the visuals in Malta are just gorgeous, and it allowed us to really, you know, create that juxtaposition of the beautiful location and the terrible story.
Damon, I'll pose this to you. As Jonathan alluded to earlier, there's this great juxtaposition in the film between how picturesque Malta is, but then like unflinching horrors that unfold. What was the thought process as a producer behind shooting and
Yeah.
shooting the film in Malta specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we were going for was, how do we make the ocean a character? How do we make it simultaneously feel endless and claustrophobic? And there's a lot of contradictions that I think visually and conceptually we were trying to match together. So Malta is this gorgeous place where seemingly nothing ever goes wrong, and it's very colorful and beautiful. And so to have that be the backdrop for screams and bloody dismemberment and stuff like that felt in line with a lot of the stuff we were trying to do.
And
I
I think
mean,
the film really thrives
one of
on
the
that.
ironies, of course. Oh, I was going to say one of the ironies, of course, is that Malta is not really known, and so part of what we built into the script was, why is there a great white shark, in Malta, and we talk about the warming waters and things like that, and it seemed reasonable when we were writing it, right? And then while we were there, article after article was coming out about great whites showing up in Ireland, in Boston,
Hmm.
sharks before, and now suddenly they did in real life. So it was a little bit prescient in that, I guess.
Actually, Jonathan, so I had a question about that, so we can dive into that. I really do appreciate how the film culminates on that message, which I think is very succinctly delivered, right? About climate change and kind of keeping an eye on that, while also not being preachy or anything like that. I'm curious, was that always part of the plan to kind of weave that message in, or did that come in kind of like after the fact?
Well, it was really about getting sharks to Malta. I mean, that's what drove it in a way. The sharks in Malta today are 4 feet long, reef sharks, right? And so it's this interesting, and then the idea that even the characters know there's no sharks, there's no dangerous sharks here, there's nothing to worry about. And we heard that in real life, right? IRL, as we say, right? There's nothing to worry about. And then as we talked further, we actually had a conversation with one of the stunt divers, and somebody cut their arm, and he said, "Well, let's not attract the real sharks," right? At one point, and so it's an issue that's becoming real. But I think that's how it evolved, was to think about, how things could change so dramatically in this idyllic location.
That's really
And to
cool.
Jonathan's credit, I do think. Sorry.
No, no, you go
Uh,
ahead.
no, I was just going to say, to Jonathan's credit, I think that, there was, while we were doing some plot narrative solving, it was like, let's use this opportunity to talk about something. And that was something that Alice liked and a lot of the people on the film were drawn to. But I think Jonathan did a fantastic job of figuring it. We were trying to figure out how to squeeze it in without, being preachy, as you mentioned. And I think the way that we ended up executing it, which, Jonathan found that nice balance of let's have it be there, but not be what it's all about.
Yeah, because it serves as that story purpose, but also kind of informs on the message. I really enjoyed that.
Right.
Eamon, I wanted to also talk about the fact that this isn't just a shark film. So there's a very human threat that coexists and maybe even surpasses the shark threat in terms of
Yeah.
terror. How did you approach crafting a human antagonist that doesn't overshadow the spectacle and threat of the sharks?
Absolutely. I mean, I think two things. One, it's hard to sharks are terrifying, but they don't have a ton of personality on screen. There's a limit to how much you can visually represent that, and so they are the ultimate danger. But you want to have tension. You want to have back and forth. You want to feel. You want there to be emotion within your antagonist, your villain, in the first place. And I think all the people, we all really cared about making sure that there was a strong presence of the bad guy. And so switching that to a human element, I mean, some of it is, there are other movies that have done a good job of it. Anaconda is a great example of a kind of creature feature where that's elevated so much by John Voight's character, who's such a great part of that movie. And I actually came onto this project, and there was a version of the script that existed that was all very present, and that was all there. And that was kind of what drew me to the movie. So yeah, I think, it feels important to make sure that your actors have your good guy characters have something really good to bounce off of. And a shark, while being scary, just, can't necessarily bring the extra level of kind of subtlety and nuance to what you want out of villainy in a movie, I would say.
And when we were writing the script, you look at looking at a lot of shark movies, right? Watching a lot of shark movies and looking what was working and what wasn't working. And honestly, most of the ones that worked the best had multiple types of jeopardy. In other words, they weren't just a buffet for the shark over and over again, but there were a lot of reasons. Even something like 47 meters down, right? It is, they could get the bends, they could have all kinds of issues being at the bottom of the ocean that are separate from there being a shark there. And so there's a lot more for people to sort of sink their teeth into than just, okay, here's another person getting eaten by a shark.
Yeah, is that extra layer of tension. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit as well about like the context in which this film is arriving. It seems like even this weekend we're having films made by 20-year-old YouTubers outgrossing Star Wars films. Like the film tastes are changing so rapidly, especially in recent years. But it seems that there's something like enduring about and long-standing about shark movies. People just love shark movies. What do you think your film does differently than other shark movies, and how do you think it plays into this just decades long tradition of people loving this subgenre of horror?
Well, I th I don't know. You never know whether or not you're succeeding at doing this, but what we're looking to do is to look at the story really being about the characters and their dynamic and the two leads and what's happening with their relationship and how do their friends interact with them. And so often in movies we talk about obstacles, right? And so the idea behind the villain and the shark is that there's sort of obstacles thrown in the way of what would ordinarily be just a bunch of people arguing, scheming, advising, friending, etc. And how does it affect that dynamic? I think is what's perhaps most interesting about the movie. And so I don't know whether there's been so many shark movies. It would be outrageous to claim we've done anything different necessarily, but we certainly we were trying to make it about people and their motivations, and that the shark, in a sense, wasn't the villain. The shark was just a shark.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. There isn't necessarily judgment cast on that. Definitely of the human threat. So I wanted to kind of conclude on more like a fun question. Obviously, Jaws kind of sits at the pinnacle of the shark attack subgenre of horror, and but what other movies in this genre do you think are the best, or that you historically gravitate to or have a soft spot for?
Well, I really do liked 47 Meters Down. I enjoyed the Reef, an Australian shark movie. Um, and obviously the big movies like Meg are fun. It's a very different kind of movie. And we were trying to be more like Jaws and less like the Meg or even Sharknado or something like that, which is like another branch of shark movies that are fun. But we were trying to get to back to what's best about Jaws is the human story, right? I mean that's what makes that movie so interesting and so enduring and that script so important. And so I think the ones like that are really about the people are the ones that I end up enjoying the most.
Yeah.
And what about you, Eamon?
Well, no, well, Deep Blue Sea is a movie that raised me. That movie was, I remember seeing the trailer for that movie, or the trailer for that movie, and like my head was spinning around. I was so excited. So that's the one that I would, but again, a very different movie. That movie is almost more of an action movie.
Right.
It's a it's obviously a much larger scale and a very different kind of movie. But that's the one that you missed that I really, I really love.
Great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad you pointed that out, Eamon. That was like a seminal part of my childhood
Yeah,
watching
that
that
feels
film.
like part of the Mount Rushmore to me. It's like,
Yeah.
Jaws and Deep Blue Sea are, those are the two best in my opinion.
Yeah. And again, though, to both your points, I do feel like your film kind of it carves its own part of that subgenre out by focusing on the characters and the thriller element as opposed to like you said, Eamon, like the more all right action or the over the topness of the Meg or something. So
Yeah.
well, I'm really
Thank
looking
you.
forward
Yeah.
to hearing what people think of the movie this week. I think it's gonna resonate with a lot of people. It's a really good time. So thank you both for speaking with me.